Welcome back to Academia Explained Badly. If you survived Part 1's mental submarines and Part 2's ruthless data processing protocols, congratulations. Your brain is officially operating on a slightly less corrupted software disk. But today, we face the ultimate boss fight. What happens when anxiety isn't just a temporary bug, but a full-blown habit? What do you do when your brain becomes an Olympic-level athlete at sprinting toward worst-case scenarios, running on a hamster wheel of pure, unadulterated dread? Today, we are hacking into Part 3 of Dale Carnegie's 1948 psychological monolith, How to Stop Worrying and Start Living. We are breaking down chapters 6 through 11 into 6 brutal, unyielding rules designed to completely crush the worry habit before it physically breaks your meat suit. Hit delete on your existential dread, and let's get into the mechanics. Welcome back. The single core processor hack. Carnegie kicks off this section with a devastating story about a man named Marion J. Douglas. This man lost his adored 5-year-old daughter. 10 months later, his newborn daughter died in just 5 days. The sheer, suffocating weight of that grief paralyzed him. He couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, and felt like his chest was trapped in a tightening steel vise. Do you know what saved his sanity? Not sleeping pills, not a vacation. It was his 4-year-old son asking him to build a toy boat. It took 3 hours of cutting wood, measuring parts, and painting. And Douglas realized something revolutionary. For those 3 hours, his mind was completely at peace. Why? Because of a fundamental law of psychological hardware. The human mind is a single-core processor. It is physically, neurologically impossible for your brain to think of more than one thing at an absolute given time. Try it right now. Try to think of the Statue of Liberty and your exact breakfast plans for tomorrow at the exact same millisecond. You can't. You can bounce between them, but you can't run both files simultaneously. This is why wartime psychiatrists used occupational therapy to cure shell-shocked soldiers. It's why Winston Churchill worked 18 hours a day during WWW and said, "I'm too busy. I have no time for worry." The hack. When the blue devils of overthinking attack you during your leisure hours, your mind becomes a vacuum. And nature abhors a vacuum. It will fill it with primeval, jungle emotions like fear and jealousy. You must lose yourself in action, or you will wither in despair. Rule 1. Rule 2. Don't let the beetles level the forest. In March 1945, a submarine named the Baya was pinned to the ocean floor under 276 feet of water off the coast of Indochina. A Japanese mine layer was sitting directly above them, dropping devastating depth charges for 15 straight hours. If a single charge exploded within 17 feet, they were dead. Dozens of them exploded within 50 feet. A bank clerk turned sailor aboard that sub, Robert Moore, lay in his bunk, shivering in a cold sweat. In those terrifying hours, his entire life flashed before his eyes. And do you know what he thought about? He thought about how incredibly stupid his old civilian worries were. He had spent years losing sleep over long bank hours, poor advancement, a small scar on his forehead, and petty arguments with his wife. He promised himself that if he ever saw the sun again, he would never worry about a trifle for the rest of his life. He survived, and he kept that promise. We bravely face the massive avalanches of life, but we let the absolute pains in the neck destroy us. Carnegie shares a story of a giant 400-year-old tree in Colorado. It survived 14 lightning strikes, centuries of blizzards, and countless avalanches. But in the end, an army of tiny beetles ate through the bark and leveled it to the ground. The verdict. Disraeli said, "Life is too short to be little." Stop letting tiny, microscopic emotional termites ruin your day. The cook burned the dinner? The napkins don't match the tablecloth? Someone chewed their food too loudly? Shift your perspective. Rule 3. Outlaw Panic with the Law of Averages, Chapter 8. When Dale Carnegie was a kid on a Missouri farm, he used to literally cry because he was terrified he was going to be buried alive. He also stayed up late worrying about being struck by lightning, going to hell, or having his big ears cut off by a local bully. As an adult, he realized 99% of the things he spent his life force worrying about never actually happened. Enter the most profitable betting ring on planet Earth, Lloyd's of London. This legendary insurance firm has made billions over 2 centuries by doing one simple thing: betting people that the disasters they are sweating over will never happen. They call it insurance, but it's just cold, hard statistics based on the law of averages. Take Jim Grant, a fruit distributor who developed severe stomach ulcers because he constantly panicked that his train cars of oranges would derail or a bridge would collapse. Finally, a doctor told him his organs were fine, but his nerves were fried. Jim sat down and did the actual math. He asked himself, how many cars have I shipped? Answer, 25,000. How many ever wrecked? Answer, about 5. That is a ratio of 5,000 to 1. The odds of his fruit being ruined were practically non-existent. His ulcer disappeared immediately. The protocol. Next time your brain starts building simulated horror films, channel your inner data analyst. Examine the record. What are the literal statistical odds of this specific catastrophe occurring? If the law of averages says it won't happen, let the math do the worrying for you. Rule 4. Cooperate with the inevitable. When Carnegie was a boy, he jumped off a windowsill, caught his ring on a nailhead, and completely tore off his left forefinger. Once it healed, he never worried about it again. Why? Because it was done. It could not be otherwise. There is a 15th century cathedral in Amsterdam with a Flemish inscription that reads, "It is so, it cannot be otherwise." You have 2 choices when facing a brutal reality you cannot change. You can accept it and adapt. Or you can kick against the thorns, run up your internal blood pressure, and trigger a psychological meltdown. Look at the legendary author Booth Tarkington. He always said the one thing he could never endure was blindness. Then, in his 60s, his vision blurred. He was going completely blind. Did he break? No. He used his humor. When massive floating specks obstructed his vision, he'd laugh and say, "Hello, there's grandfather again. Wonder where he's going on this fine morning." He endured more than 12 delicate eye operations while fully conscious under local anesthetic. He said, "I would not exchange this experience. It taught me that nothing life could bring was beyond my strength to endure." The philosophy. Masters of jiu-jitsu teach their students to bend like the willow, not resist like the oak. Your car tires last for thousands of miles because they absorb the shocks of the road instead of trying to fight them. When you stop fighting the inevitable, you release massive reserves of trapped energy to build a brand new life. Rule 5. Set a financial stop-loss order on your sanity. If you want to survive the stock market, you use a mechanic called a stop-loss order. If you buy a stock at $50 a share, you place an automatic trigger to sell it if it drops to 45. You limit your downside to exactly 5 points. You can be wrong more than half the time and still make a fortune. Why are you not doing this with your emotional life? An investment counselor named Charles Roberts started putting stop-loss orders on his resentments. He had a friend who was chronically late for lunch, keeping him stewing for 30 minutes. Roberts instituted a rule. "Bill, my stop-loss order on waiting for you is exactly 10 minutes. If you're later than that, the deal is sold down the river and I am gone." Compare that to Leo Tolstoy, the iconic author of War and Peace. He and his wife spent 50 years turning their home into a literal psychological war zone. They fought so badly, his wife would roll on the floor with an opium bottle threatening suicide. Tolstoy's response? He kept a toxic private diary, detailing every mistake his wife made, so future generations would side with him. His wife retaliated by burning pages and writing a rival novel, framing him as a household demon. They spent their entire earthly existence in an absolute hell because neither of them had the basic sanity to say, "Enough, stop-loss activated." The 3 questions. Every single time something or someone threatens to derail your mental state, run these 3 diagnostic questions. 1. How much does this thing actually matter to me? 2. At what exact point am I setting my stop-loss order? 3. Am I already overpaying for this whistle? Rule 6. Stop trying to saw sawdust. Dale Carnegie has actual dinosaur tracks embedded in stone outside his window. They were made 180 million years ago. Trying to go back in time to change those tracks is a symptom of complete insanity. Yet millions of us do the exact same thing when we lie awake at night, trying to change what happened 180 seconds ago. As a high school hygiene teacher named Mr. Brandwine beautifully demonstrated to his class, he walked into a laboratory, took a full bottle of milk, and aggressively smashed it into the sink, shattering it completely. As the students stared at the mess, he shouted, "Don't cry over spilt milk. Look at it. It's down the drain. All the hair pulling in the world won't bring back a single drop. The past is over." As legendary baseball manager Connie Mack put it, "You can't grind any grain with water that has already gone down the creek. But trying to do it anyway will absolutely saw deep wrinkles into your face and burn ulcers into your stomach lining." When Jack Dempsey lost his heavyweight championship title to Tunney, he didn't sit around marinating in his ruined ego. He rode off the defeat, opened a wildly successful restaurant on Broadway, got incredibly busy promoting fights, and later said, "I've had a better time during the last 10 years than I ever had when I was champion." Let's compile Part 3 into your updated mental operating system. Rule 1. Crowd out panic by keeping your cognitive processor fully occupied. Rule 2. Don't let petty beetles level your forest. Rule 3. Use the law of averages to weaponize math against fear. Rule 4. Bend like the willow and cooperate with the inevitable. Rule 5. Establish a hard stop-loss order on your emotional investments. Rule 6. Stop trying to saw sawdust. It's already sawed. In Part 4, we are going to dive into the ultimate psychological blueprint for cultivating a mental attitude that brings pure, unyielding peace. Hit that subscribe button right now so your garbage roommate brain doesn't miss the next upload. Leave a comment below with the exact stop-loss order you are setting tonight. And I will see you in the next compartment. Stay chaotic.